Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, folks.
On the agenda, Matt, you didn't put that it was the Board of Supervisors of Elections. But I'll announce that. I'll announce that. Okay, good evening, everyone. And is our council president here?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to ask our town manager to please announce the protocols for the meeting.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for attending. I will quickly be going through and updating some names. So I may send you a direct message just to make sure that we have everybody's name correct for the record. But just a reminder to anybody who has not joined us before that this meeting is being recorded. So the meeting will kick off with nominations for the town council. But after that, and we get to our regular meeting, I'm gonna ask that folks do turn off their video so that we can pin the council and have kind of an orderly video setup. If folks have a question or wish to make a comment at any time, the chat function is set up so that you can directly send me a message. And there's also the raise hand function. I am going to turn on a live transcript for the meeting for anybody that would like to follow along that way. And as I said, if you have any question, feel free to send me a message in the chat or use the raise hand function. If for whatever reason we get interrupted in this meeting, I'll make an announcement that the meeting's ended and we'll disseminate new login information so we can carry on without interruption. But I don't expect that to be the case, knock on wood. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I will turn it back over to you.
Okay, good evening again, everyone. So before we start the meeting, I'm actually going to be turning this over to the Board of Supervisors of Elections. And during that period, the chair, Sherry Bindeman Khan, will be presiding. And then afterward, when we begin the council meeting, we will ask that everyone who is not involved with the meeting to please turn off their video. And with that, Madam Chair, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello, everyone. In my role as the chair of the Board of Supervisors of Elections, I am pleased to receive now nominations for 2 town council seats that are up for election and the office of mayor. So let's proceed first with town council. Does anyone have a nomination for a town council seat? Susanna?
I'd like to nominate Steve Circo.
All right,
Second that.
thank you.
I also got a message from George Wyeth. And it looks like Julie Greenberg is also here representing that household. So I'm not sure if they're doing it separately or together, but just wanted to let you know, Sherry, that George had messaged me.
I don't see a hand raised, but maybe you do.
Julie Greenberg has her hand raised. Yep.
Okay, sorry, I can't see it. Julie?
That's okay. And it's really just me making the nomination. I'd like to nominate Robin Barr, who is such a great steward of our environment and our budget.
I'd like to second his nomination.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Are there any further nominations for the town council seats.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you, Susanna has nominated Steve, and I was going to do that too, but if we have one, do you need another? How are we
No.
doing this? No, okay.
No. Anyone can be nominated, and as far as I know, we don't even need a second, but I'm happy to follow that procedure. Sorry. Unless someone can see a hand that I don't see, I think that probably does it right now for the town council seats. And so I'd like to go on to the office of mayor. Are there any nominees for the office of mayor? Council member Shannon Rovak.
To nominate the current mayor, Mayor Slavin.
I'll second.
All right.
Aren't you supposed to ask me if I accept?
I didn't ask the other candidates that. I don't know if we
Yeah.
want to give you that opportunity, Mayor. No, Mayor Slavin, do you accept the nomination?
I appreciate it. Yes, I do.
Well then, and thank you. And let me then go back in case I neglected to do the right thing. And let me ask Council Person Steve Serco first, if you accept the nomination.
I accept the nomination. Thank you very much. I'm honored.
Wonderful. And Council Member Barr, do you accept your nomination?
Yes, I do accept the nomination. Thank you, Julie and Haya, for nominating and seconding me too.
Wonderful. All right, well, I don't see any further hands, so we will have accepted the two town council nominations of Steve Serco and Robin Barr, and the nomination of Mayor Jeffrey Slavin for the office of mayor. Thank you all. There'll be continuing information. We will be giving you information in the weekly announcements and in the next town journal about this year's procedures. Thank you.
Okay, and on behalf of the council, Madam Chair, I want to thank you and your board of supervisors of elections for the outstanding job that you do and the hard work in particular that you put in the last 2 years as you improve the process and access to voting. So you really set an example, and I know that we all appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Mayor Slavin. It's a continuing work. We will be back with further proposals. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And now I will reconvene the meeting. And as I mentioned before, I would like to request that those that are not participating, and anyone that isn't a member of the council, would you please block your video? Thank you. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can email Matt, or you can communicate with him in the chat. And we will start with our public comment period. And if you would like to speak, if you could either raise your hand or put a message to Matt, and he will call the names. Is there, Mr. Town Manager, has anyone indicated they wish to speak at this time?
Yes, Kumar Vaswani has sent me a message that he would like to make a comment.
Okay. The chair of our Public Safety Committee.
Thank you. So I don't know if the proposed Kenwood Little Falls Parkway letter is still on the consent agenda, but anyway, Kumar Vaswani, Trent, and I'm speaking to you either as the chair of the Public Safety Committee or as someone with 35 years of experience in the fire rescue field. You can take your pick. I would urge you not to damage your credibility by signing on to a letter that makes claims that are either unfounded or questionable or just have not been verified. And the Public Safety Committee hasn't had an opportunity to evaluate the proposed letter, and I suspect other committees haven't either. So I would urge the council to get the input of relevant committees as well as the public before you sign on to this. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I do anticipate that it will be removed from the consent agenda so that others will be able to comment if it gets to that point. And thank you. Is there anyone else, Mr. Town Manager?
Not at this time, although I will note, I believe the council was CC'd on all of the messages, but we did receive several comments related to that issue as well today.
Okay, thank you. And I think that you've written back, or I've written back to everyone to let them know that their comments will be placed in the record.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the approval of the agenda, and I believe Councilor Barr has a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to modify the agenda as it's presented so as to remove the item that was just referred to, which is the endorsement of the letter written by the president of the Kenwood Citizens Association concerning Little Falls Parkway to the non-consent agenda. It's currently in the consent agenda. With that change, I motion approval of the agenda.
And do you want to put in your motion when on the agenda you want the item?
Immediately after the last building permit discussion, which would be at the moment at 8:35 p.m.
So after the building administrator's report or before?
Before the building administrator's report.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you. So a motion has been made to approve the agenda along with removing that particular item and moving it to at the conclusion of the building applications. Is there a second?
A second.
I see Heller. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. We will now move to approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I
I
move
see
that we-
Heller first and Barr second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, well, we will now move to the first item, public hearing motion to consider approval of an HVAC replacement permit application submitted by Robert and Nancy Soring for the installation of a new HVAC unit at the location of the existing failed unit at the property located at 5506 Uppingham Street. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, and I actually had a discussion with the town attorney about these. I realized that I realize now that the code actually was updated in October or August, as you may remember, that these can be handled administratively. So I apologize that old habits die hard, but in any case, since it was announced, I think we felt that it would still be appropriate for the council to take action on this. But as mentioned, the air conditioning units are in the same location that they were previously. It conforms with all town setbacks, and we'll do a sound check before the permit is signed off and deposit returned.
And is that the full report?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Council President Sturka, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Councilor Barr, do you have any questions?
Oh, only a comment. I mean, I've no concern about this one. It's just that the county's climate action plan now is encouraging heat pumps in all new buildings. In fact, it's pretty firm on that. And it would be something for everyone in Somerset to consider also when, at the time of replacing an air conditioner, whether a heat pump would be more appropriate at that time. It does air condition. It also provides some heating at the same time. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Heller.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kumar.
No questions.
Thank you, Councilor Rovak.
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, are there comments or questions on this application from our
So,
residents?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
I move that we approve the HVAC replacement permit application submitted by Robert and Nancy Soaring for the installation of a new HVAC unit at the location of the existing field unit with the property located at 5506 Uppingham Street.
Is there a second? I saw Kumar first. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I think everyone. I do want to make a comment before we go to the next one, which was that you might recall, it's kind of ironic because I was opposed to changing that law because I felt that it took the public input out of that decision. And the issue that I was concerned about is, yes, it's nice that they are replacing their unit and that we can now do it administratively. But let's say, for example, there was a neighbor that didn't like that the unit has been in that place all along, and then they wouldn't really have the opportunity to comment at a hearing. I think, and maybe the town attorney can refresh our memory. I think there is still the opportunity for public input into these decisions, but it's not at a public hearing. And I was opposed to that, but in any case, just to let you all know. Did you want to say anything, Mr. Town Attorney, about it?
No, Mr. Mayor, but you're correct. Under the administrative procedure, the mayor would send notice to adjoining and confronting neighbors, and they would have 15 days to raise an objection. But in the case of an emergency, you could waive that 15-day notice requirement and act immediately.
Right. And I just felt ironically, I felt I gave too much power to the mayor. But anyway, the next item, public hearing motion to consider approval of an HVAC replacement permit application submitted by Ruth Albert for the installation of a new HVAC unit at the location of existing failed unit at the property located at 4701 Fallstone Avenue. Mr. Town Manager.
Yeah, much the same. This is a replacement in the same location, conforming with the town setbacks. Have not received any comments on this, and we'll do a sound check to confirm that it complies with the sound code requirements.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
No questions or comments.
Councilmember Barr.
No
Any
questions or comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Heller.
I just have a comment in terms of these HVAC systems. You know, wouldn't it be that almost anything you would put in that's new be better sound-wise than the old stuff? I know that was certainly when I did mine, when one of my units died and I put in a new one, it was much more energy efficient and quieter. So,
Do you want to ask that question to Mr. Lohmeyer?
yeah. Mr. Lohmeyer, what do you think about that?
It's my understanding that the newer units are much quieter than the old. And I think when we've been doing the sound tests, all of the units have complied with the sound code requirements. So I haven't really been involved with the air conditioners other than just listening to Matt and Wayne, but that's my understanding that they're quieter than the old. And when I replaced my new one, it was quieter.
I think it'd be kind of hard probably to find the noisier one at this juncture if it was brand new. Just a comment. Maybe we spend too much time on this is really what I'm getting at. But anyway, that's that. Sorry.
Okay, you don't need to apologize for a good question.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kumar, do you have any questions or comments?
First of all, these items should not be on the agenda because not consistent with the code. Secondly, we did this because when your HVAC unit is broken, you cannot heat or warm your home. You need to replace it quickly. Now we've added this procedural step and it's unfair to residents to wait. Just imagine without your HVAC unit. So I just, that's why we did that. We did at the beginning of this council.
Well,
so I just feel like it's unnecessarily on the agenda, unnecessarily statements are being made, and we've wasted residents' time.
It wasn't necessarily on the agenda, but I believe they've already replaced them, haven't they?
No questions.
When it's an emergency, they've already, isn't that right, Mr. Town Manager? Haven't they already replaced them?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so there's no delay. That's why, Councilor Kumar, that's why the council changed the law, because they just thought it was a waste of time tonight, which that's what you're validating. So thank you. Councilmember Rovak, do you have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated they would like to speak on this?
No,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
I move that we approve the building permit application for the HVAC replacement unit submitted by Ruth Albert to install a new HVAC unit at the location's existing field unit at 4701 Fullstone Avenue.
Is there a second? I see Kumar, Councilor Kumar. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I think it passed unanimously. The next item, public hearing motion to consider approval of a building permit application submitted by Kara Petaway and Joseph Wheatley for the construction of the backyard shed at the property located at 4507 Dorset Avenue. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, before I turn it over to Mr. Lohmeyer, I'll just note that the application does conform with all town code requirements. And we're recommending approval of the application. Doug, I'll turn it over to you for your specific report on this.
The homeowners have applied for a permit to construct a shed, which is a detached building in the left rear corner of the backyard. The county issued their building permit on March 3rd. According to town code, a detached building that is not taller than 10 feet must be located at least 5 feet from a side yard property line and 5 feet from a rear yard property line. Proposed shed will be 10 feet tall and measure 5 feet by 8 feet. The applicant's site plan indicates the shed will be located 5 feet from the left side property line and approximately 60 feet from the rear property line. I recommend the town council approve the application and require the shed to be located 6 feet from the left side property line rather than the minimum 5 feet. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else, Mr. Town Manager, from the staff side?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I see that the applicant is present tonight. Would you please identify yourself, and do you wish to comment or add anything to the report?
Yes, hello, this is Kara Petaway Wheatley.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you for considering our application. I guess my only question is the basis for the recommendation that the shed be located 6 feet from the property line as opposed to 5. That's not information that we had heard previously. You know, we're certainly willing to consider that, but I'm just curious as to what the basis for the recommendation would be.
I'll let Mr. Lohmeyer or our town manager answer that question.
Doug, you just muted yourself, but if you want to give an explanation.
Okay. The only reason I suggested 6 feet was in case there's an error and if we don't have a problem with it later. 5 feet is the minimum located to a property line, but we've seen situations where the contractors have been lazy and they were encroaching into the side yard. So this is just a precaution.
I mean, it seems a bit irrelevant, but I mean, if the code is 5 feet, that's the reason why we submitted 5 feet in our plan. And we had landscaping plans drawn up on that basis, but we can certainly work with our contractor to make sure that we're at a minimum 5 feet and we'll aim for 6 feet from the property line.
Well, Ms. Wheatley, you're at liberty to comment, and you're welcome to argue, you make comments that you oppose what the staff recommends, because the council will consider the staff recommendation and your input.
Yes, so I'm technically on the record, I would oppose because the code says 5 feet. We made our plans based on 5 feet. However, it's a soft proposal. If the council approves 6 feet, that's fine with us.
Okay, well, thank you. Did you have any other comments or questions about the report?
No.
Okay, thank you. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Barr, do you have any questions?
Oh, it's a comment. It's just that when it's at 5 feet, there might be a route there that makes it not suitable for actually putting the floor off the hut there. And so the builders would want to move it. And that's why Doug's getting at this idea of give yourself a little bit more room so that they can find the good spot to place it. That's what it's about. All right.
Thank you. Councilmember Heller, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, have we ever been in a position where, you know, where something has shifted, so it's less than 5 feet, and we made people then move it? You know, and do we do that? We could do that, I suppose. But has that ever happened to us?
If it were to be built closer than 5 feet, we would probably talk to the applicant and let them know that either they could have the contractor move it to 5 feet, or they could come back to the council and seek a variance. That those would be their two options.
Okay, I just wondered, you know, what if we've ever told somebody, well, you know, you're too close, got to move over. You know.
Do you have any further questions?
No, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kumar, do you have any questions?
Yes, Matt and Doug, can you repeat again your proposal for an additional 1 feet? I'm not sure I understood the rationale when you first went around it.
There's really no problem with the 5 foot, but typically when they're just building a shed, they don't really do a survey like they would if they were doing a house stakeout. So the contractor doesn't really know exactly where the property line is. So I'm just recommending that they be cautious to give it another foot just to make sure that it doesn't encroach into the setback and they have to either relocate it or apply for a variance.
But our code says 5 feet, correct? And I
5
think
foot is a minimum, yes.
our code says 5 feet from the side, and from the back, I think it's 8 feet. And they are 52 feet from the back. So the proposal as is compliant with the code. So I'm trying to understand why we would suggest something that would steer away from the code.
Yes,
I understand it's
precaution.
just a feet. Then do we need to update the code? Maybe
Meet
we
the code,
update.
yes.
Say that again?
Yes, it does meet the code.
It meets the code, okay. And then Matt, we have to Debbie's question, a code enforcement process. How does, I know how it works in building, how does it work in something like this? Wayne would go and check? Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, if you grant a permit based on a site plan that's been submitted for the record, then a condition of the permit is that construction must conform to the approved plans. So if it was later determined that the shed was located in an inappropriate location or encroaching into the setback, then the town would have the ability to engage in enforcement. It would be a violation of the permit to construct the shed in a different location.
Got it. So we legally are in a position then to ensure that it conforms with the code.
Yes.
Great. Thank you both.
And I believe.
Matt?
Yep, go ahead.
Can I explain a little bit further? When
Go
there's a new house or an addition, typically we'll ask for a wall check, which is a surveyed process where they locate the house and give us a dimension or a setback from the property line. We don't ask for a wall check on a shed. So when I go out there to measure it, I have no way of measuring to the property line because I don't know where the property line is in the field. It's not a full-blown construction or a building permit, it's just a shed. So I was just suggesting that we make it 6 foot just to make sure we don't have a problem. 5 foot meets the code. Thank you.
Well, Section 112.5 of the town code requires a building survey with a margin of error plus or minus 1 foot to be submitted with the application. But are you saying that's only for new construction and not for a shed?
They did provide a survey and a site plan, yes.
They did provide that. So we do know the property line. I mean,
We don't know where it is in the, we don't know where it is in the field. We know what it is on a piece of paper.
seems like a very basic element here to know the property line.
Well, often when there's a survey, the surveyor will place iron
Define
pipes in the
it.
ground. If the surveyor does not locate them there, surveyor will place new pipes there.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any further questions, Councilmember Kumar?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Rovak, do you have any questions?
No, no questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated they wish to speak?
The only comment that I got was actually Barbara Condos, former council member Barbara Condos, sent a note to me that answered council member Heller's question. She noted one instance where a house was poured on Uppingham Street and they went over the building line and they had to go back to the council and the council said you need to re-pour it to conform to the town code.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wheatley, before the council deliberates, you now have an opportunity to rebut or comment on any new information that's come up since you last.
Yeah, I have no further comment other than to just observe and you know, just say that this information would have been helpful to have prior to tonight. We weren't aware that the recommendation was going to be made to, you know, for it to be 6 feet from the property line. Again, we're happy to comply with that. But I think just as a matter going forward, it'd be helpful to let permit applicants know that. And, you know, if the code, we made the plans per the code, you know, I read the code and we're trying to comply with the code. So that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you very much. And now I will turn it over to, that concludes the hearing part of the comment part of the hearing. And now I will turn it over to our council president to lead the deliberation.
Right. So it's interesting discussion. I seem to recall also that there's an issue once with someone's like backyard playhouse, and there's an issue with the construction, whether it was the location or the height, and they had to make some adjustments. But in this case, I believe that the applicants have read and understood our code and have proposed a shed that conforms with our code, and I don't see any reason to object to it. Sorry, that's all I have.
But aren't you going to?
Oh, you want me?
lead the
Sorry,
discuss- Yeah, if you can just lead the discussion.
So we'll just go around in order. Robin, do you have any questions, comments?
And I think very much appreciate the applicant's comments too, and Doug's as well. And I think now it's well understood by the applicant that there is some concern as to whether the contractors will in fact stay exactly within the 5 feet. And I think probably the applicant is sufficiently sensitive to that now that we don't need to modify the motion to move it to 6 feet, that's all.
Kabir?
Yeah, my views are consistent with both of yours.
Great. Debbie?
I'm good, thanks. Got it.
Great. Shannon?
Yeah, I think that they could do it just for the 5 feet of the code. And then, you know, if it doesn't measure out appropriately, then that's a second issue.
Right.
So it sounds like you're ready to make a motion.
Okay, so my dog's weighing in also. I move that we approve the building permit application submitted by Kara Petaway and Joseph Wheatley for the construction of a backyard shed at the property located at 4507 Dorset Avenue.
Okay, Mr.
Second.
Town Attorney, is that motion legally and technically sufficient?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And I think I saw Councilor Kumar second it. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I think it's unanimous. Thank you very much, Ms. Wheatley. We look forward to working with you. And now we will proceed to the hearing for 5506 Trent Street. Today is April 4th, 2022. This is a hearing before the Town of Somerset Council to consider a building permit submitted by Chris Conlon of CM Conlon Contractors and Builders Incorporated for the demolition and construction of a new single-family home at the property located at 5506 Trent Street. This is the second continuation of the hearing for this project. The applicant is also represented by Shane Green of Potomac Valley Surveys and Patrick O'Neill representing Mr. Conlon as his attorney. This hearing is being audio recorded. We ask that all speakers speak one at a time, addressing the council when called upon, and to state their name and address for the record before making public comment. The hearing will observe the following order. First, the Somerset Town staff will present their findings and submit for the record a report on the application under consideration. Next, the applicant will present their application. After that, the Somerset Town Council will have the opportunity to ask questions of the applicant or staff relevant to the application at hand. Afterward, other interested parties will have the opportunity to ask questions of the applicant or present comments to the council. Next, the applicant will have the opportunity for rebuttal testimony, after which the public comment period of the hearing shall be completed and the record closed. Finally, the council will deliberate and discuss among themselves the merits of the case, the findings of fact and conclusions. The council may make a motion on a permit decision. The town attorney will be asked to write a decision and the town manager will be asked to issue a permit with the conditions voted on by the council and enumerated in the town attorney's decision. We will now begin this hearing with the presentation of the Somerset staff findings and reports. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The applicant is seeking approval for the demolition and construction of a new single-family home on the property at 5506 Trent Street, as the mayor mentioned. The town council did not approve plans due to consideration of the following at the previous hearings. One was that the storage of stormwater equal to a volume of 2.6 inches of rain for all main building roof surface was not accounted for. And two, the health and maintenance of trees, both in the town right of way and on private property. The applicant did make two revisions to the plans that were presented at the March hearing. And the applicant amended the site plan to configure the proposed driveway to no longer require the removal of either of the two town cherry trees in front of the property, and also moved the proposed retaining wall to the right, on the right side of the property, about 5.5 feet away from the property line to preserve the neighbor's trees, which were planted right on the property line and which have grown onto the applicant's property. The applicant did not amend stormwater management plans that were presented at the last meeting. The applicant asserts that they've met the requirements of the town code. And subsequent to that meeting, I've consulted with the staff and contractors, including Neil Weinstein of the Low Impact Development Center. And Neil was not able to prescribe a plan to infiltrate water on site, and wasn't actually able to recommend any specific improvements over the plan as submitted. But Mr. Weinstein and Mr. Lohmeyer both agreed on the importance of maintaining the structures that are proposed on the property. So if the council does approve the proposal, I would recommend that the council not approve it without some type of maintenance plan requirement as part of the stormwater management plan. For example, an annual inspection and certification that the system's in working order, that it's not clogged, and any issues that are found upon inspection are remediated. I had mentioned to the council that I did not receive any comments on these revised plans since that time over the weekend. We did receive 2 comments, one from a neighbor, a resident who did recommended that the council approve the permit and expressed their belief that approval was warranted. Another applicant thanked the council for their deliberation on a difficult topic, and was appreciative of the changes to the plans to save the mature cherry trees. But otherwise, those were the only 2 comments that were received. Other than that, I'll actually turn it over to Doug Lohmeyer for further comments.
And before we go to Mr. Lohmeyer, I'll just also note that the town also reached out to the Montgomery County Department of Permitting Services to inquire whether a county permit would be required for the proposed stormwater system. And Robert Kelly, the manager of the residential plan review, indicated a county permit would be required. And that email was shared with Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, Ron. And actually, and the just to add to that, the applicant also, I believe, met with Montgomery County and was told the same, but is seeking town council approval so that they can then go back to the county and get the county approval, because the county does not require these additional steps. So in essence, they wanted to figure out if they're getting approved by the town before they go ahead and spend the money and time to amend their plans at the county level. But with all expectation of getting a county permit, but that does raise another point that I would recommend that any approval also stipulate that the applicants provide a county permit before the town issues its own permit.
Does that conclude your report?
That's it for me. Doug may have some
Mr.
additional
Lohmeyer,
notes that he wants
Mr.
to
Lohmeyer,
share.
do you have anything additional to add?
I have nothing to add to what Matt said.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Conlon and team, thank you for being here tonight, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to speak first. This is Patrick O'Neill. I'm an attorney at Lurch, Early and Brewer in Bethesda. My business address is 7600 Wisconsin Avenue, Suite 700, Bethesda, Maryland 20814. and appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of you this evening to hopefully get us over the finish line to get these plans approved and allow my client, CM Conlon Contractors, to demolish and begin construction of their new proposed building home at 5506 Trent Street. With me are the applicant, Chris Conlon, who I think you've heard from before, and his engineer, Shane Green, with Potomac Valley Surveys, who are available for any questions that might emerge throughout the conversations that we have. I also note that this is the applicant's third time before the town council on the property. I believe the first time was a waiver request for stormwater management that the town asked the applicant to go back and try to find a way to make it work on stormwater management. It was the county had provided a waiver for stormwater management, and they were seeking the same relief from the town. And the town had asked that that CM Conlon Contractors go back and try to find a way to make stormwater management work in compliance with their provisions. And I also understand that in between the time that that request was made, that the town changed its stormwater management requirements to have the requirements that are in place now, which is calls for storage of roof runoff on the site. And we do believe we comply with that, and we'll get into that in further detail if the council would like. I bring up those prior hearings because we think of this hearing today as an evolution of prior hearings. And to the extent that the town was not inclined to do so, we asked that all the transcript and materials from the prior hearings be included as part of this record for purposes of having a full and complete record with tonight's hearing. So I don't know if that's a request that the council will entertain afterwards, but we make it at the outset.
I think, Mr. Town Attorney, we can accept that now, correct?
Yes, the council can take administrative notice of prior proceedings, but as a practical matter, and as I believe the mayor and manager noted, this is being treated as a continuation, so the prior hearings are part of this record, but
that's not something that the council needs to deliberate. We can just accept it as part of the record.
right, yeah, the
Yes.
council could confirm
Yes.
on the record now that, as requested by Mr. O'Neill, the records of the prior hearings are part of the record of this hearing tonight as well.
Well,
Which I believe is the case because it's a continuation.
Yeah. And I think that the town manager and I have the power to accept that. So I'm going to do so. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you. Do appreciate that. As noted by the town manager, the prior hearing on February 7th, and this was the hearing that first introduced the stormwater management plan and building plans for the property. And as noted in the town manager's report, there are two major issues that arose, and one was the stormwater management, whether we comply with stormwater management laws, and the second was the two trees. So the easier of those two issues is the trees. We believe that by modifying the plans in order to preserve the street trees and to have some mitigation measures in place for neighboring trees, that we fully address the town council's concerns, previously stated concerns about the trees, and that there are no lingering issues associated with that. So let me pause there, see if there are any lingering issues on that the council would like to investigate, and then we'll get to the more complicated of the two issues.
Well, the way we proceed, Mr. O'Neill, is that the applicant makes a presentation, and then we get questions, then we get comment from residents and guests, and after which the applicant has an opportunity for rebuttal.
Understood.
So at this point, it would be more efficient if you just presented your case.
Will do. Thank you. So the plan that has been revised and submitted has been reviewed and approved by the town's arborist. And we believe is fully compliant with the issues that were raised and any of the concerns that the town would have on tree removal and mitigation and protection. As to the stormwater management issue, we note in the town manager's report in the town, well, both the town engineer and the town attorney agreed at the February 7th hearing that the proposed plan fully complies with all stormwater management requirements of the code, meaning that all of the stormwater management from the roof runoff is treated, is kept on site and fully complies with the requirements in the code. They agreed, and to be more specific, that the plain reading of the code does not require any on-site infiltration. And that should really be the end of the analysis, that as long as we're able to store the runoff on site, that we met the town code and we should be able to get our permit approved. The council, however, expressed in the February 7th hearing some interpretation of the code that would require some infiltration to occur on site in addition to storage. And we, as your town manager reported, and as we're happy to discuss in further detail, to build upon the issues that were raised upon the February 7th hearing, the ability to provide infiltration on site is not possible. And it's not possible for two main reasons. One being that the soils, proof of which we did provide to the town, is that they're too devised of too much clay. There's no infiltration, the proper infiltration that occur with the soils that exist at the property. And that's really the end of the story. Even if there were an opportunity to provide some infiltration devices, they would need to be located further away from the house, whether it's the current house in the current footprint or the enlarged house that the applicant proposes. And the site's too small to be able to address any on-site infiltration devices, even if the soil were able to provide the infiltration that would be needed. So I add that as an add-on, but again, we believe that the fact that the soils are not able to accommodate the on-site infiltration is sufficient to demonstrate that the ability to do an infiltration, some sort of infiltration treatment is not possible. This finding, we also note, was confirmed by Mark Etheridge of the Department of Permitting Services. He is the manager of the Water Services section for the Department of Permitting Services. He also shared with us, without naming names, and I don't profess to know who, but that he had also received several communications, not only from the town manager, but other administrators and even some council members who were inquiring of him to determine what infiltration could be expected on this site. And he conveyed to us that he confirmed the same story that we had heard, that he does not believe that there are any infiltration treatment opportunities on this site. So with that, we believe that we would be entitled to a variance from the requirement of the code that the council may read an infiltration requirement, stating again that we don't believe that is the plain reading of the code, but to the extent that it is, we do request a variance to be able to have the stormwater management plan and the permits approved, subject to some of the conditions that were noted tonight. Because the variance requirements are met, that the practical difficulty of being able to comply with stormwater management with the unique circumstances of the size of the property and, more importantly, the makeup of soils on the property, it's infeasible and impractical for the applicant to be able to do so, and that a variance would be warranted in that case. So I'll stop there. If there are any
Okay,
questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now will be the opportunity for the council to ask questions of the staff, the town attorney, or the applicant or his team. So Council President Circo.
Thank you. The first thing I wanted to note, just want to express my appreciation to the applicants for listening to what the council has asked or and said, and has taken some steps to modify their permit. I personally appreciate and believe that the entire council appreciates it. That said, my first question, this might be more for the town attorney. Section 112-6 of our town code says that an applicant for a town Somerset building permit shall submit the following materials: a copy of the Montgomery County building permit granted by Montgomery County for the identical work which the applicant seeks a permit from the town of Somerset. So like the applicants, I know this is now the third time we're considering this. There have been changes. The changes are required by Montgomery County code to be reviewed and approved by the county. This has nothing to do with the county looking at stormwater. This has to do with the county looking at the structural impacts of the cisterns on the building. If the cisterns are like dry wells, they need to be something like 15 feet from the structure of the building. They're not in the drawing. I'm not an expert on this. That's why the county needs to review it. Why do we need to even consider this permit at this time until we get a county approved application? That's for our town attorney.
Sure. Well, the council has before it an application, so certainly the council could deny the application for failing to submit the requisite information. Another option would be if the variance and or the permit request were granted, the council could condition approval on presentation of the county permit. I believe the town's done that on at least one occasion where applicants were submitting for a variance and argued that because there's a lot of planning involved, they would have liked to known whether the variance was granted before they finalized their plans for presentation to the county. So in that instance, the council allowed the application to proceed. The town code does provide, as you noted, Councilmember Circo, the legal information to be submitted with the building permit includes a copy of the county permit for the same work. Another section of the code says a town permit cannot be issued in the absence of the issued county permit. So reading those two provisions together, I believe the council could, if it desired, condition approval by the town on presentation of county approval.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Sure. Oh, and could I add one more thing as well, just so the record's clear? I believe the stormwater drainage ordinance was introduced in November.
Thank you. Yes, it's
2021 and effective in December. So it does predate the applicant's petition, but I think it was the first application processed under that new law.
Okay.
If that helps.
May I be heard on that as well, or?
You'll have the opportunity.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know the rebuttal piece. I'm used to the
problem. No problem.
Apologies. I'm used to the Montgomery County Planning Board.
Take good notes, and you will have all the time you need for rebuttal.
Thank you.
okay. Thank you, Ron. I note that the the other example you gave, the applicant was requesting that variance sort of knowingly in advance. This is like a structural question of, is it even possible? But I'll let my fellow council members decide when we deliberate how we want to deal with that. But okay, got a few other questions here. For the applicant, does the proposed roof include the covered roof, the square footage?
Shane, are you able to address that?
Looking at the plans.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Circo, your question was, does the square footage include all of the roof?
Yes, including the porch roof. Like the covered
It
roof
does.
over the porch. It does.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure it does.
And is the patio impervious or pervious?
Well, the patio would be impervious, but it's not a roof area.
Understood, but in accordance with town code, town code 112-14 D3C, storage for all runoff from an impervious patio shall be provided for a one-year storm event in a device such as a rain garden or other such device approved by the town council. So what is the applicant's approach to the patio runoff?
Jane, if you don't, I printed off a copy of the town code from the website. And the copy that was indicated, it was updated. Well, the copy I have does not have a C.
I apologize. It's on a draft that I was looking at that must have been dropped. So that's not in the final town code. My error, thank you. Just went through some of my notes. I noticed, let's see, stormwater. I noted that the applicant refers to following stormwater management devices proposed are in compliance with the state of Maryland and Montgomery County stormwater approved management practices. Am I correct in assuming that that's referring to the stormwater, the SMD stormwater management document and the Stormwater Management Act of 2007?
Jane, are you able to address that?
Yes, they're included in those manuals.
Okay, great. Chapter 5 for the environmental site design from that manual, M1, rainwater harvesting cisterns and rain barrels for conveyance states that a stable discharge shall be provided to pervious areas for any necessary dewatering between storm events. So it doesn't seem to me that you're complying with that. Am I correct that you're asking for a variance from that?
No, the discharges we spoke about at the last meeting is through that gravel trench.
The gravel trench is not a pervious area.
But it comes up through the grass, so it spreads the point of discharge out through the gravel and then onto the pervious surface.
See, so I'm hearing you correct that you're considering the ground to be a pervious surface?
Yes, the grass would be a pervious surface.
Well, but your your geotech, sorry, I forget their name, the independent office you had to evaluate your soil found that an infiltration rate of 0.09 inches per hour and does not meet the minimum of 0.52 inches per hour per Maryland Stormwater Handbook. Infiltration practices in this area are not considered feasible.
That's for an infiltration practice. We're not attempting to infiltrate the water into the ground. We're discharging it over a pervious surface.
So it's pervious, even though it's not, can't be, okay, okay. I understand what you're getting at.
I can understand your confusion. It's an interesting topic.
Okay. I'm also curious about the size of your cisterns, the total system. It's a large system. The Rainscapes program limited the size to 2,000 gallons due to, for their certification or rebate program, due to concerns regarding dewatering. So I guess I'm wondering how you're handling the dewatering when the Rainscapes program considers 2,000 gallons the maximum.
I'm not familiar with that specific program.
Okay, it's a county stormwater management program as opposed to a regulatory body. I have. This would be for the town manager. I want to make sure I get this in the record, as he raised a phone call with Neil Weinstein. Neil Weinstein was hired by our stormwater study committee to help the town study stormwater conditions. I also spoke to Mr. Weinstein. I did not refer to 5506 Trent Street in particular, but I did talk to him about what could be done in a situation where you had soil that did not support filtration. I received a different answer from what was relayed by the town manager. He says there have been some studies tilling topsoil into the clay soils, but not a lot of knowledge in existing subdivisions. And he also referred me to let's see, Judy. Sorry, I tried to put all this together, but I'm still struggling a bit. Referred me to Jenny Janis of myrainplan.com. They're an organization in the Metro DC area who deals with, I guess you could say, alternative solutions or stormwater management in general, but considering alternative solutions. And one of the solutions that she has had success with and advocated is green roofs. Matt, did you ask Neil Weinstein about green roofs?
No, we didn't. We did talk about green roofs.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the applicant, I understand green roofs are not an option with the design you have for your house. But would it be possible to have a house with some or all of the roofs as flat or nearly flat, so you could put in a green roof?
Is that question me?
Yes, thank you.
I think we spoke about this before. That's more of a commercial application where you have somebody that can get up on a roof and actually maintain it. That's probably impractical for somebody owning a residence to get up and maintain a roof. It's not the architecture for snow load and other issues that we have around here, the freeze. It's just not, as you probably don't see any homes with green roofs in your community, or very few, if any. It's not a very practical solution for a single family home.
Okay, thank you. The information I received from Jenny Janis and her company contradicts that, but I think it's a question of how much experience exists at this time. So maybe they're on the forefront.
That's fair.
Okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you all for bearing with me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Go
President.
on.
Councilmember Barr, do you have any questions?
Yeah, of the developers in the rain tanks that you've constructed, were you aware of the county requirements from distance from the house for the placement of these tanks? And did you observe those county requirements when you were designing the tanks?
I think Shane will be helpful in answering that. But I want to point out sort of at the outset that there's a little bit of a disconnect between what the county is requiring or would require and what the compliance with the town code would require. So to reiterate, the county has already determined that the property is waived from stormwater management compliance because it's too small and wouldn't otherwise be able to address stormwater management on site under the county requirements. So what the cistern is in response to the town code that the county has already issued a waiver for, so that they've indicated that they're agnostic as to where we put the cistern in relation to the building because
No. Sorry.
that's my understanding. And there was a back and forth today involving your town attorney and I think the town manager, where the county did confirm that a cistern, if required, would not require any further stormwater management review. So maybe that's another way of saying what it is that I was trying to relay previously. But I'll turn it over to Shane for anything additional that he would have about the location of the cisterns, because I think that's your question, Mr. Barr, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rephrase it to say, do you believe there's any danger to the house of the placement of those cisterns?
So in the current location as proposed.
Yeah.
So Shane?
So these cisterns, as opposed to a dry well or other infiltration practice, are not full. They're full of water, but they're enclosed. So the issue with a dry well too near the foundation has to do with seepage of the water back to the foundation. And in an infiltration practice, I would certainly agree with Council President Circo's assertion that they should be farther from the structure. And that's the problem that we have with infiltration on this lot, as we spoke about at length, is physical space. These cisterns are an enclosed plastic tank that is sealed and only discharges through either its overflow directed at the street or its metered outfall through the gravel trench.
Okay, thank you. I've got no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Heller, do you have any questions? You're muted.
No, everybody has really asked a lot of my questions already, so thank you all.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kumar, do you have any questions?
Yes, very quick, Matt. So it's still an pervious driveway being proposed.
Yeah, I think Chris or Shane can confirm that, but I believe that I think that was feedback after the first meeting, and the applicant agreed to put in pervious driveway materials.
So
That's correct.
the location has moved, but it's still a pervious driveway.
That's correct.
And then in terms of the other water management systems, they are the same that we reviewed in the previous meeting.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. And if I'm just, this is for my own understanding, I think you're able to save the cherry trees because you have shifted the retainer wall on the north side of the property down a bit.
So just to clarify, council member, the cherry trees are on the front, in the front of the property, they're town. The
Yes.
trees on the side, Dr. Feather can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they might be holly trees on the side property. The cherry trees were the front, but in any case.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
But I understood from our previous meeting that part of the challenge with managing the cherry trees was the space possible with the retainer wall, which impacts both sets of trees. So I'm just curious what led to the ability to save the cherry trees in the updated proposal.
This Tolbert Feather, the arborist. They actually changed the driveway configuration. The wall really wasn't a factor for either of the cherry trees.
Great.
The wall was only a factor for the neighbors' trees, the 3 trees on the north side of the property. So what they did is just change the configuration of the driveway to protect the 2 cherry trees.
Great.
And also the grading's going to change, so you don't undermine or cover up either of the trees.
Thank you. Thank you. No more questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Rovak, do you have any questions?
I just have one question that maybe I missed it before, but now I'm seeing it. But are you putting in a pond in the backyard?
No.
It says like on that site plan, like pond TBR. I
Oh,
don't know
to
if
be
that-
removed. To be removed. There was an existing pond from the existing homeowner.
Oh, okay. So you're not gonna be placing in a new pond.
No. It's to be removed.
Okay. I have no other questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And before we take comments from the public, I'm going to just do a second round with the council to make sure you don't have any additional questions. Council President Circa, do you have any additional questions?
No further questions. I do appreciate the feedback. I'm starting to get a little bit better sense of some of the things here.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barr, do you have any?
No further questions, no.
Thank you. Councilor Heller,
No,
Councilor Kumar,
None from me. Thank you.
Councilor Rovak, any further questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated they wish to speak?
Yes. The first is Julie Greenberg.
Hi, I'm Julie Greenberg on Fallstone. And I've attended both of the previous hearings on this application. I didn't comment last month, but I commented 2 months ago. And I just want to return to that comment and say that at that time, I felt that what was needed for demonstration was a different perspective on problem solving. And what I want to say tonight is that even though I wouldn't say that this path has been the smoothest, and anybody listening to the back and forth tonight would see that there's a lot of issues that may need some tying up, but I think there's been a lot of progress, and I commend the town council and I commend the applicant, Mr. Conlon, for problem solving on this. This is a difficult issue, but the town needs to grapple with it, and I feel like it's made a very good start with this application. So I think this is something on which the town can take some pride in making progress, and I urge the town council to consider the progress made and approve this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Town Manager, has anyone else indicated they wish to speak?
No, there are no other comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Now, Mr. Attorney O'Neill and Mr. Conlon, do you have any in the way of rebuttal that you would like to add before the hearing is closed and the council deliberates?
I certainly want to thank Ms. Greenberg and other positive comments that appreciate that this is a challenge, and hopefully the council appreciates that we took it seriously. We dug in as best we could to try to address the town code and the limitations on the property with the limited infiltration system that's at play. To be clear, if we had good soils and the ability to address the infiltration in the way that others are suggesting that we could or should, it would have been done. And it really is the challenge of the size of the lot and really the soils that make it impossible to achieve the infiltration objectives that, again, some council members are reading into the code. So if there, I think there was one comment from the council president about the Montgomery County permit requirement. I'll reiterate that there is no, as we understand it, there's no further review needed for stormwater management by the Department of Permitting Services. There is a requirement of a building permit for the cisterns that are being proposed. And we do request that if a variance is granted and in order to be able to maintain and the variance is, there's two ifs here. The variance is granted and the permits are granted, that we ask they be conditioned upon review by the Department of Permitting Services, that we could demonstrate to the town manager has been met from obtaining a permit for the cisterns. And I think there was another, the maintenance requirement that was suggested as a condition would be acceptable as well. So with that, thank you for your time. And we do hope that third time's a charm here and that we'll have the permits approved as requested.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you for your time and for Mr. Collins' time and his team. And with that, this concludes the public portion of the hearing. The record is now closed. The council may discuss and deliberate on the findings of fact and conclusions of the law and may vote on the application. And I will turn it over to the council president to lead the deliberation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for everyone engaged in this this hearing. I found it very interesting, and I think as Julie Greenberg said, I think we've made some good progress here. For my fellow council members, I just wanted to clarify that when I was talking about the permit, I agree completely with the attorney for the applicant that I do not think that the applicant needs the county to review the stormwater management. It's just a review of the building permit for the inclusion of the cisterns. My thoughts here, and then I'd like to go around, is that they've done a commendable job within a traditional approach to meet some of our needs. And it's better than it was, certainly when it was first proposed, better as in providing more effective stormwater management. And it appears to be better than the current conditions at that site. I am still concerned that it's not storing the water. It just starts pumping almost immediately, which I think is going to end up with more wash as opposed to absorption into the grass. And I would like to see an attempt at a rain garden, perhaps with just a small amount of soil being remediated somewhere in the property. Those are my thoughts. Let's go around. Robin?
Yeah, I want to approve this application with conditions that have been discussed already. This site is among the most challenging to build on in the town. It is clay to probably 10 feet down. It is small. It is also extremely, shall we say, topographically challenged. It has a hill going in two different directions. In the backyard, it's going on a north-south plane. On the front yard, it's going on an east-west plane. And the applicants have bent over backwards to design a system that will capture rainwater according to our code and prevent it flooding the neighbors and flooding our streams below. It doesn't do it to your full satisfaction. I understand that, Steve. But it does it enough to reduce the danger of flooding and to reduce the loss of sediment and erosion of sediments. And that is an achievement. So that's why I'm willing to support it.
I hear you, Robin. Thank you. Kabir?
Yeah, I don't believe this is about whether this meets Steve's satisfaction or not. I mean, technically, they are not meeting the code here as we have drafted it and updated it on storage. Clearly, additional sort of clarity is needed on that front on our part, but they're not meeting the code. However, I do share Robin's view, as I explained last time, that this is a challenge lot. It's really the topography, the shape, that it sits on a hill on top of its own hills, that make interventions challenging to achieve its success. So those are sufficient, I think, conditions for us to seriously consider a variance in this case. And additionally, as we've all observed that, and I'm glad that there was a certain position taken last time that these trees have been saved. And as we've collectively also observed that trees are part of the stormwater management process. And so there is sort of a collective improvement here. The water management system, the pervious driveway, the existing root system of the trees, potentially that adds up in a favorable way in terms of our stormwater outcomes.
Thank you, Kabir. Debbie?
I really appreciate that Mr. Conlon has really gone back and made these changes that we've asked for. I think he's done a good job doing it, and I think we should approve this permit. But I think I'd be remiss if I didn't address the elephant in the room, and that is we do have a property that's very difficult and very challenging because of the clay, because of the height, because of the size of the property. But the elephant in the room is that we need some sort of measures so we don't plan houses. We don't build houses that are too big for a property that's challenging. And that's on us. And I think that somewhere along the line, we have to go back and really take a look at those issues. That if we continue to build houses that are too big for the property, and we should not be giving variances because the house they want to build won't meet the standards. We have to set standards so that you have to build to them. So that's just my soapbox, and that's that. But I think we should approve this permit. And I do appreciate all that Mr. Conlon and his company has done, without a doubt. So thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Shannon?
I agree with what Debbie said. And, I think for Robin to say that it was bent over backwards to, kind of go through and make changes. While I appreciate that these changes were made, this house is large. It's got a screened porch. It has a patio. It has a 2-car garage. Like, there's other choices that can be made, to not have as much runoff come on. And I understand that it's a challenging plot of land, but if all of the houses on all of the streets do all of these things, that's what we're trying to avoid moving forward. And that's why we changed the code to set it up like that. And so at some point, some people are going to have to forego the largest patio and the largest screen porch and the largest garage and the largest house. And it's going to take everyone like kind of step by step, but I do appreciate that they did save those cherry trees. I think that's great. And, I agree that we should move forward with this building permit.
Okay, so Mr. President, it sounds like the council is prepared to make a motion. So if someone could make a motion, and before it's seconded, if the town attorney could rule whether it's legally and technically sufficient.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I make a comment before the motion is made that may guide the motion? So the applicant has requested a permit, and in the alternative, a variance and a permit. Based on the comments, it appears 3 members find the standards met for a variance, 1 for the compliance with the code, and one in opposition, so it would seem that the motion should be to grant the variance based on the comments I've heard. With respect to the conditions, as noted, the conditions discussed are that town approval will be conditioned upon approval of a county building permit, and the town building permit would not be issued until the county permit is presented to the town manager, and that a maintenance agreement be imposed. What the maintenance agreement should include should probably be discussed by the council. At the last meeting, we discussed as an example how the town of Chevy Chase requires a maintenance agreement be recorded in land records so that it is binding in perpetuity. And their approach is somewhat complaint-based. If the system stops working, the town has the ability to compel the owner to make repairs so that it does work. And if the owner does not do so, the town can do so and charge the costs for doing so to the owner. Alternatively, I believe as the town manager mentioned, an option could be that the owner proactively undertake annual inspections and certifications. As a practical matter, the council may want to discuss what is better. I don't know what the cost would be for annual inspections and certifications, but something to consider.
Well, perhaps in the interest of time, one of the three of you who is in favor of granting the variance might want to work with Ron to craft a motion that then can be seconded by one of you, then have a discussion. It's better to have something to start discussing rather than to spend a lot of time on all the different options. So would one of the three who is interested in approving the variance like to be the maker of the motion and craft it with the town attorney? Perhaps that's the senior member, Councilmember Barr.
I don't think a variance is necessary myself, so don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I wasn't listening closely. Which of the three of you who's in favor? Councilmember Kumar.
I'm happy to, yeah.
Okay, so why don't you work with the town attorney in crafting a motion that someone can second, and then you can all discuss it and possibly amend it.
Okay, so motion to grant variance. Hold on 1 second. Motion to grant variance for the proposed stormwater management interventions by Conlon Contractors at the property located at 5506 Trent, given unique topography and other challenging site conditions. Am I getting there?
Yes. And then with the conditions outlined by the town attorney, and then if you could clarify whether you are including in the motion a requirement that the maintenance agreement, require annual inspection and certification, or in the alternative, that it be complaint-based such that if it fails, the town could compel repairs.
Require annual maintenance by the applicant.
Annual certification.
Annual assessment and certification of the entire stormwater management system.
And who is required to conduct that annual inspection and certification? Could it be done by the owners themselves, or do they need to hire a stormwater engineer?
To be conducted by owners, using certified stormwater management engineering resources, and to be submitted for review to the town on an annual basis. As a start, does that work?
Yes.
Do I need to repeat that?
No,
Okay.
So what else does he need to put in the motion?
that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so a
There was-
motion is,
Sorry.
And,
something
and that's the
contingent on
motion to
the-
grant the waiver. Did you also want to include in the same motion, a motion to approve the demolition application and the building permit application, including the tree protection plan measures as recommended by the town arborist?
Maybe let's do this as a
Do it
separate
separate.
motion. Yeah.
That's a good
okay,
idea.
is there a second to the motion on the variance?
I'll second it.
Okay, is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those.
Wait,
in
say,
fa-
sorry, I would just
Go
like,
Go ahead, Steve.
I think that Kabir did a great job there. I'd just like to add for everyone's knowledge, we're not reinventing the wheel here. If we go to the stormwater design manual for Maryland, sorry, my cat just stepped on it, but the section on cisterns mandates the use of a certification to ensure the proper operation of a privately owned cistern system. And it provides some of the information there. So if we, as a council, decide to grant this or approve this, I would be willing to serve on a team to help work out the wording on how we actually want it to be maintained. But my thought is we should not be more onerous than the certification or inspections required for dry wells. And I'm not sure what that periodicity is. It might just be once every 2 years or once every 5 years.
So you're saying let's not do it, suggest on an annual basis? Is that right?
Correct. I would remove the annual.
So did you want to amend the motion? Are you speaking against it?
I went with the recommendation from the town manager, which I think was annual. But if you're saying that the standard is what's consistent for dry wells in other jurisdictions, and that's one every 3 years, then
that's what I'm just not
that's
sure. Can we
yeah.
ask Doug, or can we, within our consult here, can we get input from Doug or Matt on the periodicity for dry wells inspections?
I think so, Mr. Town Attorney, in order to do that, they have to reopen the hearing, correct?
Oh, let's not do that. Let's not do that.
So is there
It's every 3 years for dry wells.
And if we, okay, yeah, I would say consistent with the inspections for dry wells, that the system should be consistent with maintenance for dry wells.
If others don't have a view on this, do you want to propose an
So
amendment?
do you want to make an amendment
Yeah.
to the motion?
So I propose an amendment that instead of specifying a 1 year periodicity, we specify a periodicity comparable to that for dry wells.
Okay, Mr. Town Attorney, is that legally and technically sufficient?
Well, we don't want to leave open for debate what is comparable. I'm looking in the Maryland Design Manual right now to see if I could find that certification.
Steve, I think if you're going to make an amendment, I recommend the amendment just updates the period from annual to once every 3 years.
Wait, so do these get then recorded in the land records?
Yes, it would.
Oh,
so instead of let's not compare it to dry wells, and let's just make it simply, instead of an annual review, you're informed by what has been recommended by dry wells, and based on that, you're saying once every 3 years would be a reasonable standard.
Yes.
So I would just make the amendment to change.
So
what
the
I had
amendment
said.
is 3 years.
Okay, so can you restate the amendment to the motion? Mr.
Amend, you should
Council
say
President.
amend the motion from
Oh.
annual reviews to reviews once every
Is
3
this
years.
is this your amendment, Mr. Council President?
What I just said, Steve?
Yes, 3 years.
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry.
so is that legally, Mr. Town Attorney, is that legally and technically sufficient?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so, and I think Councilor Kumar seconded that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so is there discussion on the amendment to the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
I'm in favor.
So everybody, so that's 5-0. Okay, now, is there further discussion on Councilmember Kumar's motion as amended?
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I would just add that because the agreement's not been written yet, it would be a condition that a maintenance agreement, including a 3-year inspection and certification requirement, be executed for recording in land records in a form approved by the town manager, a town attorney.
Okay, do you accept that, Mr. Councilmember Kumar, as a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so is there further discussion on the motion as amended and then clarified with the town attorney?
I have a quick question.
Go for it.
So every 3 years, they have to do this certification. And is someone gonna like, is this gonna be like on the town manager's calendar? So if they don't do it, he dings them? You know, who's gonna make this happen? Is that gonna be like, you know, somebody on the council's job? How do we work that?
Yes, it would be on the town manager's calendar or the
Okay.
town engineer's calendar. And I don't imagine the inspection would be that complicated for a dry well. As I understand, generally the inspection involves dropping a ruler into the dry well to make sure that the sediment hasn't compiled such that water no longer infiltrates. Here with the cistern, the inspection will probably be making sure the pump still operates and that the French drain hasn't compacted.
Or the structure itself isn't, the integrity hasn't been compromised.
Well, how would they test for that?
Before I respond to a question for which I don't have an answer, Ron, do we need to be very clear that that it could be subject to inspection? Do we need to spell that out in the motion?
I'm sorry, say again? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Do we need to spell out that the system would be subject to periodic inspection by town staff?
Yes.
Because we don't say that right now.
If you want that right, then
Well, that
yes.
could be that could be, I think I would view that as
another amendment.
another friendly amendment that is
Yeah.
an elaboration from the town attorney. So do you
Why do we want
accept,
that?
do you accept that?
I'm bringing this up in response to your observation, Debbie.
No, but if it's on the town manager's calendar every 3 years, that this has to be done and he can, why would we send somebody in to do it? You know what I mean?
In case it fails in year 2, let's say, and the next
Okay.
certification is not due for another year.
Okay,
Exactly.
all right. Gotcha.
Okay, is there further discussion on Councilmember Kumar's motion as amended and elaborated by the town attorney? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? So everybody voted for that. Now, Councilmember Kumar, are you prepared to make a motion on the building application itself?
Yeah. I motion to approve the building permit application submitted by Conlin Contractors and Builders for the demolition and construction of a new single-family home at 5506 Trent Street.
With the
I need to
conditions recommended by the town engineer and
Town
Town
arborist. Yeah. With the conditions recommended by the town engineer and town arborist.
Okay, so I assume that's legally and technically sufficient. Would someone like
Yes.
to second it?
Well, yeah, on completion of a wall check and height survey.
That's part of it, Mr. Town Attorney, correct?
I believe that Doug did include that recommendation. I'm looking for his report.
Let's add that
But if,
recommendation.
yeah, if not,
yeah.
Robin's included it now as a friendly amendment.
Okay.
Well, it hasn't been seconded yet, so it's still part of the,
And isn't this where we make a conditional on the county approving the revised building permit?
Yes.
Okay, so that'd be my
okay,
friendly.
so is everybody
all right.
clear?
Go
So,
ahead.
Councilor Barr, you seconded that motion, correct?
Yeah.
And now, is there discussion? Is everybody clear on the motion? And is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? So that passed 5-0. Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Conlon. Thank you, Attorney O'Neill. And we look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much for your time and appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will now move to the item that was taken off the consent agenda. It is listed as Somerset Town Council endorsement of letter written by Christopher Danley, Kenwood Citizens Association President, to Montgomery County Council Member Andrew Friedson regarding Little Falls Parkway. Might I also add that, this was requested by the Kenwood Citizens Association last week, and subsequently a letter came in from the coordinating committee, of which we are a member. Basically, they have been, and which has been sent to all the council, and it didn't reach the agenda in time, but the council is aware of this letter, and basically the coordinating committee endorsed the Kenwood Citizens Association letter. But in any case, what I want to do now is give you some information on why we're here on this issue tonight. So, as you know, I guess it was several years ago or 18 months ago, the County Parks Department, when at the height of the pandemic, closed Little Falls Parkway to make it accessible to residents to use for recreation. And I guess maybe, was it 6 or 8 months ago that the Parks Department opened the Little Falls Parkway, except on weekends. And was that, I don't recall, was that, Councilmember Heller, you're our rep to the coordinating committee, was that about 6 or 8 months ago?
No, I don't remember.
I don't, in any case, so during this, so since the Parks Department made that decision, the residents of Kenwood have been complaining to Councilmember Friedson and I think others, the Parks Department and others, about that closure. And I think it's all elaborated in the letter that the president wrote. But the reason why that letter was created was because about a month ago, Councilmember Friedson called a meeting with representatives from Kenwood and representatives from the Chevy Chase West Citizens Association. And I think wasn't our town manager there? No. I guess I was the only one who was invited from Somerset. So at that meeting, the Councilor Friedson had made a request to the Parks Department to come up with a plan to address the concerns of Kenwood. And he presented it to this group as a win-win situation. And then the presenters were representatives, the chair of the Parks Department, the director of the Parks Department, Mike Riley, some of his staff, and there were also representatives from the Montgomery County Transportation Department there. And they presented a plan, which you have all seen. And this is only in the preliminary stages, all right? They presented this plan that, as you know, would call for the closure of 2 of the 4 lanes permanently and to create lots of additional parkland over there. And it would also, I think it was, I guess in the plan, it would mean that would be a 7-day-a-week plan. It kind of doesn't matter. Anyway, so we're presented with this plan, and we're also told that it's possible for the county to start implementing this plan this year. And so I think that the reaction of the people who were there was that this plan is being, shoved on all of us without any kind of public input. And so then we had an opportunity to ask questions. So my first question was, I said that from what I know, the major problem on Little Falls Parkway is the intersection between Little Falls Parkway and the Capitol Crescent Trail. I said, how does this plan address that problem? Because it seems to me that was the major problem that the citizens in this area have been wanting solved. And the answer that I got was that a bridge, it would require a bridge, which would cost $5 million, and they didn't have the funds for that. And then I also said, I said, I can't imagine that you're going to start this construction without lots of public hearings on it. Okay. So then Naomi Spinrad, who you all know from Chevy Chase West, she started asking questions about the cost. And they said that initially it would cost $1 million. And then she said, well, what's the total cost? And they couldn't answer. So she was very frustrated. Then there were 2 citizens from Kenwood. They were both, perhaps they're members of the association, I don't know, but they weighed in and they were talking about some of the issues that that the Kenwood president mentioned about how the closure is dangerous and they have no sidewalks in Kenwood and they felt that this proposal, which is just in the pre-planning stages, it's not. I think that Councilmember Friedson wanted to get a reading from us to sort of take our temperature before he requested that the Parks Department, do their formalities to implement this, right? So basically, what these 2 members of the Citizens Association said was that they felt that instead of the way it is now with a 2-day-a-week problem for them, this creates a 7-day-a-week problem for them. And then after that, the president of the Kenwood Citizens Association started asking a lot of questions about the traffic and what counts. So I think it's all in that memo. Okay. So then at the end of the meeting, Councilor Friedson says to us, instead of saying, I will take, the Parks Department should take this information and go back to the drawing board and come up with something that responds to some of these objections. Instead of saying that, he said, what are the next steps? So we were all kind of surprised. And then that was the end of the meeting. And then subsequent to that is when the Kenwood Citizens Association decided to be proactive in this. And so there are really two issues here. The first issue is making sure that there is adequate input on this plan that the Parks Department has for the future of Little Falls Parkway. And then the second one is whether or not they're going to reopen Little Falls Parkway on the weekends. But that wasn't even, that's something that the Kenwood Citizens Association sort of added on to their advocacy, because as far as I know, and I've talked to members of the Parks Department, there are no plan, and as I wrote to all of you in the last few days and to some of our constituents, there are, as far as I know, there are no imminent plans for the Parks Department to open Little Falls Parkway on the weekend. So I think they would only do it if there was lots of advocacy from all the surrounding residents. But so that's something that the Kenwood Citizens Association put on the plate. But as far as I'm concerned, and now, and I've spoken with Councilmember Friedson on Friday, and he has assured me that before anything is done, he will request, in the same way that he did on Thrive, he will request some public hearings on this. So there isn't, so I think that having this we put this on the agenda because it was requested by Kenwood Citizens Association, but we're not under the gun to make any decisions tonight. I just wanted to make sure you were all aware of it. And in respect for the Kenwood Citizens Association, we placed it on the agenda, but the council has many options. I think the main thing is that we should all request that before any changes are made, that there is adequate public input. And that's all I want to say about it. And now I will take questions from the council. Council President Circa, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the engagement with our neighboring jurisdictions. I think that Mr. Kumar Vaswani is correct. We need to have our committee structure look at this question. I don't sense any particular, excuse me, urgency. So we have some time to figure out what we want to do, and also input from our residents is critical. So I look forward to hearing from any residents who may be online tonight. That's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Barr.
I think an appropriate future topic for a work session agenda item. But I mean, the point is that we really don't have a consensus on what we think is appropriate for it. But I will say at the same time that all we're doing is lobbying. We don't have any authority to decide this. It's entirely the Parks Department, Parks Commission, who have the control over that. So, but a future work session agenda item. Yeah.
And might I also add that our voices might be more prominent, but I think that the powers that be, just like I've said on Thrive, I think that it would be appropriate for any of our residents to write letters to County Council Member Friedson, the at-large members, County Executive, and to the Parks Department, because there's been a lot of energy and lots of good ideas that have been generated, and I'm very pleased that this is happening. Council Member Heller, do you have any questions? So I might add that the coordinating committee, of which we are a member, has endorsed the Kenwood Citizens Association position, and Councilmember Heller is our rep to the coordinating committee.
I think that we shouldn't sign the Kenwood letter. I think we should write our own letter. I think it should say that we want to underscore that we want them to go through the proper channels as they take a look at whether they're going to reopen, Little Falls, whether they're going to, cut down 2 lanes, whatever it is. They need to go, we want to endorse that they follow the rules and they do this in a public way. Because I know today, we've seen it, those who read the listserv and we've gotten our own letters from residents. There's a pretty split group here of people wanting it open and wanting Little Falls closed. And I think that the Parks Department, whoever actually oversees this, they should do the homework on this and figure out what's the best thing to do.
Well, at the meeting, they had not done their homework. There were many unanswered questions, and that's why they need to have hearings. And honestly, I think it's going to be a very high hill to climb to get Parks Department to open Little Falls on the weekend. I don't think they have any interest in opening it on the weekend, unfortunately. And that's why it's going to take, citizen input.
Right. Well, maybe then we should just write our own letter, just saying, hey, we agree that there should be, the process should be gone through and our citizens need to weigh in. And because I don't think we can make a decision on that. We don't have enough information, that's for sure.
And I think it's very fortunate that this is election year and people should be asking all the candidates and everything about it because. Thank you. Councilmember Kumar, do you have any questions?
No, Jeffrey, Mayor Slavin, thank you for the detailed background. And I share Debbie's perspective on this, that I think in our experience on Thrive, it's worthwhile keeping the county on its toes. As much as we might believe with the overall direction, vision, the fact that there are planned improvements to any part of our county is exciting, but they do tend to, not always follow process. So I think it's worth keeping them on their toes and also being responsive to the process Friedson seems to have set up. So I'll be in favor of us doing our own note, which
honestly,
focuses on that element, and the rest is not on the issue. Kenwood seems to have just tacked on the weekend thing on the issue because it's an issue that they're bothered by. What we are really focused on is this proposed major development right next door to us, potentially very positive, but still a major development that we probably want a proper process on. And it'll be good for our town if that process is followed.
Might I add that I think it was unfortunate that Councilor Friedson presented it to us as a win-win. And it was presented as if it's something that they could do within this year's budget. And it was kind of shocking. And he was surprised at that all of our reaction to it.
I can see him being excited, and
he took offense to it. But at least we've moved him. He didn't say one thing in the meeting about having public hearings on it. And now, since he's gotten all these letters, he's publicly stating public hearings. So that's good. And that's what democracy is all about.
So we can add, if the timing works, maybe at a next or the following work session, we can come together on a note that's from us, focused on this procedural element.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Rovak, do you have any?
Yeah, I agree with what everyone is saying in terms of a letter that we ultimately maybe do from the town of Somerset. I think it would be, because we are so divided, I think that it would be just helpful for us to help lobby for the process to be a public hearing, and so that all of the citizens can make their own comments and come up with their own decisions to try to help in them making this decision.
Okay, thank you. I know there are a number of residents who are here tonight, I think, that are interested in this topic. Do we want to give them an opportunity to speak? or do we want to plan to have a future hearing on it, or what's your pleasure? A lot of comments that we've received have been placed in the record.
Yeah, if I could just quickly say that
Yeah.
I personally received 11 emails over the weekend and today since the agenda was posted. 6, it's hard to capture the nuance because people made up some really good points, but just from a very high level, 6 residents were against the town signing or endorsing the Kenwood letter. 5 were in favor of it. So it does underscore Councilmember Heller's point that it's very, very split as far as we can tell.
I recommend we do have a hearing once we have our own note, or whenever it's appropriate, because right now we are not signing on to the Kenwood letter, and we are saying we will draft our own. And on top of that, we are saying we will draft our own specifically focused on a procedural recommendation to Friedson and the Parks Department.
So do you wish to take comments from the public tonight, or do you wish to schedule it another time? And I think definitely, perhaps Councilor Heller, as our rep to the coordinating committee, can write an article for the Journal this month about it. You know, it's a little bit difficult given that there's no. And the reason why we don't really need to be overly alarmed is that there's no proposal that's actually on the table. It's just that Councilor Friedson called us together to get a reaction to some initial pre-planning on it, but Kenwood citizens decided to be proactive. And so they wrote that letter, and they're enlisting support the way a lot of our neighbors have done on lots of other issues. So, but I think that we want to get all the information possible before we actually take a position on this. So, Mr. President, what's your pleasure about?
So I can't recall who it was either Robin or Kabir who suggested this is an excellent topic for a work session. I think we'll have the emails that the manager has referred to. I think if there are any town residents that have stuck with us this far this evening and wish to add a few comments, we should give them a few minutes each.
Okay, if any resident wishes to comment, could you please indicate to the town manager in the chat or raise your hand?
I think perhaps we had some people waiting on bated breath, but at this point we have just one resident who's indicated that they wish to comment. Elizabeth.
Oh, the chair of our traffic committee.
That's right.
Good evening.
Good evening, and thanks. I just wanted to second the idea of being proactive about this because, we've seen that Parks tends to run with ideas without necessarily getting public input. And even that it's likely we will not be able to open up Little Falls on weekends, which I'm not even necessarily advocating for. I'm just saying it would be good to make that a process with public input if that is the decision that they're going to arrive at. So given that things seem to happen sometimes without the proper process, I just want to support us being proactive. And so I really appreciate the council wanting to get ahead of this and have a session to draft a letter. Thank you.
But in the meantime, I think we want to urge anyone with an opinion on this to direct their energy to the county executive, the county council, and the Parks Department.
Definitely, yes.
Jeffrey,
Because the
I'll put
concerns
that in
that,
my article.
go ahead, okay.
I'll put that in my article with links for people to write to, who to write to, and to make it easy for everyone.
I mean, I think we have to respect everyone's view on this, especially the safety issue. You know, the safety issues that have been raised by Kenwood are also valid for our town, because the closure of Little Falls Parkway on the weekend does create additional traffic on our streets. So we have to acknowledge that, and we have to figure out how we're going to deal with that. And the inconvenience of some of our residents also has to be considered. But again, we don't, you know, as Councilmember Barr points out, we only have an advocacy role here. We don't have the power to call Parks Department and tell them what to do. So.
What, no hearing with the Parks Department for the Somerset Council, Jeffrey? We can't, yeah?
Well, hopefully, you know, sometimes we have more influence than we think we do, but I certainly don't think that this multi-million-dollar plan should be rammed onto us without adequate public input. And the way it was presented, the reason why Kenwood citizens are so upset is because of, I feel, the disrespect they were afforded. I mean, they were all excited about this, and they had all beautiful pictures and park benches and everything. You know, there's another serious problem with the Capitol Present Trail, is that it's a victim trail. It's a victim of its own success. And you have bikers and walkers, and it's overpopulated. And part of their motivation for this plan was that it would take some of the pressure off of the Capitol. That's what they said. But when questions were asked, they couldn't even answer them, especially about the cost or about the traffic counts and everything else. So it's good that we're all getting engaged in this and get the necessary input from all of us. Okay, so I guess since no one else would like to speak, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which will be the building administrator's report. Mr. Lohmeyer.
Yes, for the two houses across from the town hall on Cumberland, the contractor is now forming the framing for the interior walls. At 4900 Cumberland Avenue, the applicant applied for a building permit to add an addition on the left side of the existing house. The town issued their permit on December 27th, but work has not begun yet. And the town staff is working with 3 applicants now at 4816 Essex, the 502 Greystone, and 5613 Warwick. They'll be coming in with plans soon. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Council President Circa, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you for the report, Doug.
Thank you. Councilmember Barr, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Councilmember Heller. I guess she's muted.
Oh, I don't have any questions. Sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. Councilmember Kumar, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Rovak.
No
Do you have any
questions.
questions of Doug?
No.
Okay, thank you. The next item is to consider approval of a resolution establishing the 2022 Somerset Dolphins team rules, calendar, and budget as recommended by the town swim team committee. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, and we are graciously joined by a member of the swim team committee, Ms. Ann Bolton. Before I turn it over to Ann, just to remind everybody that we have, it's always difficult for the swim team because their season doesn't exactly line up with our budget season. And so we typically in the spring have these hearings where they present to the council their annual season, and are mostly self-sustaining, other than the one line item in the budget, which we've discussed and which I think you are all familiar with at this point. Other than that, I'll turn it over to you, Anne, and I'm sure you are more than capable of handling it.
Thank you all. Thank you for all your work as always. So we have submitted a program rules, budget, and recommendations to the town council for approval. And along with that, are requesting $20,000 to be placed in the 2023 budget to help offset the cost of our coaching staff for the swim team. Just to give the council members a bit of context, Somerset is a really unusual kind of member of the Montgomery County Swim League because we are, obviously all of our team has to be drawn from the town. And so the composition of our team is very much defined by who happens to be living in Somerset on any given year and whose kids are interested in being on the swim team. And consequently, it's pretty hard for us to cover the fixed cost of the coaching staff as compared to other teams that are membership pools and have hundreds and hundreds of team members and families who are involved in the swim team to draw from. So we typically have about 130 kids on the team, representing about 100 households in the town of Somerset. So we think that the value of the swim team is it creates community, allows a lot of kids and families to get to know one another, and we think it's a huge asset to the town. So we are hopeful that the council will consider and approve the recommendation for both the program that we are proposing and the budget. And as Matt pointed out, our season planning starts in January. The dates for all of our various events are set by Montgomery County Swim League. So we've included those dates, and obviously those require us to utilize the pool when we have home meets, and those are defined by the county. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
So, and before I go through the council for questions, I did want to publicly thank Ann Bolton for her willingness to work with the town manager and the town attorney and me to address some of the structural problems with the governance of the swim team so that we can make it easier for them to function within the context of our budget. So hopefully within the near future, we had a meeting with the town attorney, and we are counting on his brilliance to come up with a solution that we will be hopefully presenting to the council within the next fiscal year so that we can make it easier for them to function, because it's really difficult for them to make decisions in a timely manner. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions this time. Thank you. It looks good.
Thank you. Council Member Barr, do you have any questions?
I look forward to the team's performance this year, and I have no questions.
Thank you. Council Member Heller.
And I want to thank you because I as a past rep, swim team rep, I know this is a hard job. But in the old days, when I was the rep, when we would sit down as an MCL, the whole MCL would sit down and we would be in our division, we would trade kind of like who had the meets and when. And I think when I looked at the dates, it looked like maybe we had 4 home meets. Am I wrong about that?
Actually, I can't remember if we have 4 home meets, but those are set, Debbie, and it's an odd way that the county sets who is at home and who is away. So we have no control over that. For B meets, we do, but for A meets, the county sets those.
That's really interesting because they always would split it up so it wouldn't be a burden on one pool over the other. So I find that interesting that they've done that, because that's really not fair. You know, if there are 6 meets, are there 6 meets? Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we would try to do 3, you know, if anything, 3 home and 3 away.
And it typically works out that way. Last year we had only 2 home meets, A meets. And so I think this year we have, it's flipped and we have more home meets. So it ends up working out about the same. B meets, we do have control over that. Last year we hosted more than our share of B meets because the other pools frankly didn't have their act together when it came to the COVID policies. So but this year we're going to be, consequently, we'll be end up doing a lot of away B meets.
Okay, well, thank you. Just thought I'd ask.
Yep.
Thank you. Councilor Kumar, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thanks, Ann.
Thank you. Councilor Rovak.
Well, since I wrote this all in my calendar already, I think we have 3 home Saturday meets and
good.
3 home B meets.
Well, are you thinking of time trials? You're probably thinking of time trials as one of the meets.
I don't, well, wait, let me just double check. Maybe I did my
And-
calendar wrong. I've got
Yeah.
time trials on the 11th
Yeah.
and then home meet on the 25th.
So the B meets are split, 3 and 3.
Home meet on the
The A
2nd,
meets are 4 and 3.
and
Home.
home meet on the 16th.
4 home. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 and 3 home.
Anyways, but no, thank you so much. I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated they wish to speak on this topic?
Nope.
Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
Debbie?
Who's the liaison to the swim team?
Debbie is. No, Debbie?
I could, I'm
Oh,
just getting a
Shannon.
phone call. My phone is ringing.
Shannon?
Okay, don't tell us that on the record.
do it.
Are you-
Somebody else
moved
did
it.
it.
Okay, I can do it, I guess.
Okay, Councilor Rovak, make a motion.
I make a motion to consider approval of a resolution establishing the 2022 Somerset Dolphins team rules, calendar, and budget as recommended by the town's swim team committee.
Mr. Town Manager, Mr. Town Attorney, is that legally? I assume it's legally. Thank you. Is there a second? I see
Second.
Councilor Kumar. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. The next item is.
Thank you
is-
all.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. To consider. Well, okay, so I'm gonna ask, the way it's listed is to consider introduction of an ordinance adopting the town of Somerset fiscal year 2022 budget and tax rates as submitted by me per the charter. But I don't think that has to be voted on. We didn't,
We usually vote to introduce ordinances.
the mayor introduces the budget though.
Well,
In the
this,
charter.
And shouldn't it be 23? Am I?
Yes, that's.
It should be 2023. But Mr. Town Attorney, I don't think, I think this is in the charter that, I don't think that it has to be voted on by the council.
let me
So
look at the charter.
it says that the mayor submits
Oh, is that it?
budget to the
Okay.
council.
Okay.
So
So is
it's,
that, so
it's
the
a,
way, so the way the town attorney interprets it is that I submit it and then they have to introduce it. That's the way you're, okay, thank you.
yes, Mr. Mayor. Yes,
Okay,
state law
excellent.
requires this to be done by ordinance. so
Excellent. Excellent. I'm all about following the proper procedures.
Yeah, indeed.
So, Mr. Town Manager, do you want to briefly present this item?
yeah, as Councilmember Kumar rightly pointed out, this is the FY23 budget. So our fiscal year runs from July to through June of the following year. This introduced budget is a culmination of multiple meetings between the council and the budget committee, the mayor and the budget committee, the staff and the budget committee. But it's also not the end of this process for those tuned in. Residents still have an opportunity to submit comments, and the budget is voted on for adoption at the May meeting. So there's still an opportunity for the council to consider. residents' requests, and it's obviously a very important aspect of it. I will note, though, that the budget as it is has had a lot of public input, including recommendations from all of our town committees, some separate recommendations from individual residents as well. And thank you to everybody who did take part in that to this point. That's it for me. I will note that our budget committee chair is here, Mr. Phil Young, so I will also give him an opportunity to make some remarks.
Okay, thanks, Matt, for the opportunity to say a few words about the proposed budget that the mayor is submitting for council consideration tonight. I'll keep my remarks brief as the council has a full agenda tonight. And we've already covered a lot of ground in over 6 hours of working sessions on the budget over the past few weeks. First, I'd like to thank the mayor, our town manager, all the council members, especially our budget liaisons, Kabir Kumar and Robin Barr. And last but not least, the other budget committee members, John Medallia and Ann Kelly Bolton. The budget you see before you is very much a team effort. Everyone's help has been invaluable. The proposed FY23 budget and 5-year framework is a product of consensus. It reflects many compromises on spending priorities given the scarcity of resources. It reflects the temporary relief provided by ARPA funds. It begins to address our large capital spending needs while still maintaining a prudent level of reserves. It foresees a possible need for a property tax increase in fiscal year 25 to keep our budget adequately funded. However, since only the FY23 budget is binding and the outer years are reconsidered on a rolling annual basis, we can revisit that possibility next year. For FY23, we have a conservative projection of income tax revenues, property tax revenues that reflect the county's latest 3-year assessments, and a little over $600,000 of ARPA money that is providing significant but temporary relief. We should be able to begin addressing important basic infrastructure needs, including roads and stormwater mitigation efforts. After not adding to our rainy day fund this fiscal year, reflecting our austerity budget, we should be able to get back on track to gradually augmenting the fund to 1-year coverage of operating expenditures over the long term. The present scenario has us reaching just over 11 months by fiscal year 27. Now I'll turn it back over to our town manager in case council members have any questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
No, I want to thank the committee very much for all the work they've done. I think we're in good shape.
Councilor Barr, do you have any questions?
No questions. Like Steve, thank you to the committee for all your work.
Thank you, Councilmember Kumar. I mean, Hello, sorry.
Okay, no, I don't have any questions, but just a thanks to the committee because you've done a yeoman's job. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Kumar.
Yes, thank you to the committee, Phil, John, Ann, but also thank you to fellow council members for 3 sessions over the last month on the budget. So excited to take this forward.
And Councilmember Rovak, do you have any questions?
I have no questions, and thank you to the committee for all their hard work.
Okay, thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion to introduce the budget?
We can do it.
Go for it.
But I've been messing things up, so let's see if I get this one right. Okay, motion to consider introduction of an ordinance adopting the Town of Somerset fiscal year 2023 budget, 5-year framework and tax rates as submitted by Mayor Slavin per the Somerset Charter, section 8341.
Well, it's not the 5-year framework.
It's
That
not
doesn't
the
require-
5. I
No,
don't need to
just-
say 5-year framework. Okay, I was going with Phil's. All right, let me try again.
Now, could I just ask, are we introducing the ordinance now rather than considering the introduction? So is it, we're introducing?
He's introducing the ordinance.
Right.
So motion to introduce the ordinance, adopting the Town of Somerset fiscal year 2023 budget and tax rates as submitted by Mayor Slavin per the Somerset Charter, section 8341.
Okay, is there a second? I saw Bar first. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, thank you. And so the town manager, I guess in conjunction with the budget committee, will be writing an article, I assume. And let me also remind everyone that over the course of the month, if you decide that you would like to introduce an amendment to the budget at the May meeting, I sincerely request that you prepare the information about your amendment well in advance of the meeting. And it would be also good if in some way it could be publicized. If you have an amendment and if you wanted to get it passed, it would be best if you announce it in advance and the town manager will publicize it. Because you want, if you do plan to have an amendment, you will want to have some kind of public support for it. So it's not good budgeting at the last minute to have an amendment the night of the adoption. So that's my word to the wise. Thank you. The next item is to consider introduction of a charter amendment to lower the eligible voting age from 18 to 16 for municipal elections in the town of Somerset. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also included a note for the council that sort of explained the documents that were available to you. Based on discussions at the council work sessions, I think that the understanding was that the council's intention was to lower the voting age in town elections to 16. When drafting the amendment, the town attorney realized that lowering the voting age could have what might be unintended consequences, namely the eligibility for service on the town council might also be lowered to 16, because currently the town code has 3 criteria for serving on the council. One is that they must be a US citizen. The second is that they have to have resided in Somerset for 18 months. And the third is that they must be a qualified voter in both the town of Somerset and the state of Maryland. So I noted that importantly, they have to be a qualified voter in Somerset and the state of Maryland. So implicitly, because citizens are not qualified voters in the state until they're 18, the town charter amendment does not affect voter age at this time. However, council might at a later time consider a charter amendment. So that was included as sort of food for thought for future discussion, but not necessary for consideration at this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
Sorry, no questions.
Thank you.
I'm excited
Councilor
about this.
Barr. Councilor Barr, do you have any questions?
I support it, no questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Heller.
I have a comment. Is this a comment period?
You can say whatever you want.
Whatever I
Yes,
want. Okay, I'm
whatever you
sorry.
want.
I'm getting a little tired. I would have preferred this at the beginning of the night. I would have been better at this. I don't support this. I don't support this because 16-year-olds are not fully, their brains are not fully developed. And they make their decisions sometimes based on popularity or how the wind is blowing. Now, I know that the young woman, Amelia, who has suggested this, doesn't fit in the, I mean, she's great. You know, she probably could have made decisions when she was a lot younger than this age. But I think the bulk of our children are children, and they're children for a long time. Their brains do not develop until way into their 20s, by the way. And I know some arguments are, well, we let them drive. Well, I wouldn't let them drive if I were given that choice too. look around the neighborhood and watch some of the young kids speeding through the neighborhood. Okay, just yesterday, I was like bowled over by a kid that just about ran me over. But it's just, I don't think it's prudent. They're young and they're not ready for this. And interestingly, there's been some surveys about this. And overwhelmingly, the surveys have shown that voters, of age voters do not support younger 16-year-olds to vote. And I think what bothers me is especially is that in a town this size, there are often emotional decisions to be made. And what kids do is they call their friends and say, hey, you got to vote with me. Because implicit in that is if you don't vote with me, you're not my friend. And I worked with children. Okay, children were my business. And I don't come at this just because I think it's a bad idea. I just know it's a bad idea. So those are my 2 cents. And
Well, perhaps you'll have an amendment to raise the voting age to 65. Councilmember Kumar. Councilmember Kumar.
No, I don't have any questions. I'm excited that we are moving forward. I just want to remind Debbie that Amalia did conduct a survey. I know Debbie likes surveys, and there were a fair number of residents that were excited about this across the age spectrum.
The fair number.
And I think it was 60 respondents to the survey. Off the top of my head, it's 930 for me too. Right. I think the other thing to remember is that I've interacted with a fair number of people across the age spectrum who continue to face cognitive challenges. So I think it's not peculiar to 16-year-olds. So.
No, but 16-year-olds.
Okay, you don't need to debate this now. Councilmember Roback, do you have any questions about it?
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion for the introduction?
Steve?
I'll take it. I move that we amend the charter to lower the eligible voting age from 18 to 16 for municipal elections in the town of Somerville.
No, this is an introduction.
You introduce.
I moved to introduce the charter amendment. I was getting ahead.
Okay.
We'll actually
Thank
vote.
you. Is there a second?
Second.
It is late. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you. So just like with the Supreme Court, who is going to be writing the article for the Journal? And the town manager can, but.
Oh, I'll do it. I'm fine.
And I would also urge Councilor Heller to write an editorial with her views.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Well,
the council overwhelmingly supported it.
It doesn't, no, this is just, anyway, I'm encouraging you to write that.
I'm happy to engage with anybody who wants to engage.
Okay.
But I don't think it's necessary to have my views out
Okay,
there.
I think it's important when we inform our residents through our town newspaper that all of the issues are put on the table so that you have the best information possible and input from residents when you make your decision. But that's up to you. The next item, public hearing motion to consider approval of a contract with Revise LLC of Troy, Michigan for the design and hosting of a new town website at a cost not to exceed $18,000 as recommended by the Town Communications Committee. Mr. Town Manager.
Yeah, I won't take up too much time because I think we've gone over the existing issues and the reason that this is on the agenda. So I don't know that it's necessary to rehash them. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we are graciously joined by Thomas Jean from Revise to answer any questions that the council might have regarding the proposal and their plan for providing us a new website.
And thank you, Mr. Jean, for being available at the last minute. We greatly appreciate it. Council President Circa, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you, Councilor Barr. Do you have any questions?
Is the 18,000 cap sufficient given inflation at the moment, 7.9%? And it's a proposal that's over a year old at that value, so at that amount.
The updated proposal it is an updated proposal from Revise, and I don't have it pulled up. I can, but I believe it's something like $17,600.
All right.
Did you want to ask that question to the vendor, Councilmember Barr?
Well, yeah, okay, I will do. I mean, you're aware of inflation, I'm sure, as much as I am. Is that going to be sufficient over the year ahead, given the way costs are rising now?
Yes, sir, it will be sufficient. We do anticipate probably increasing costs in the future, but not on this particular contract for the town of Somerset. So we're just honoring our pricing from last year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Heller, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Thank you. Council Member Kumar.
None. Just to clarify, Matt, this is just corresponding directly to the discussion we had, right, in the working session.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
And this is the firm that you were anticipating going back to.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Rovak, do you have any questions?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, are there any comments or questions from our residents or guests?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
I move that we approve the contract with Revise LLC of Troy, Michigan for the design and hosting of the Newtown website at a cost not to exceed $18,000 as recommended by the town's communication committee.
Is there a second? I see Councilor Kumar. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, sir. We will, Mr. Jean, we will look forward to working with you tomorrow. I'm sure your manager will call you tomorrow.
Thank you. We're very excited to work with you all.
Okay, excellent. And our last agenda item is the town manager's report.
Yeah, a couple of items that I wanted to highlight for you. We did complete our Tree City application, so I anticipate hearing back from them in the next couple of weeks, confirming that we are a Tree City again. Started to work a lot on getting ready for the pool season. We have ordered new grills to be put in to replace the old grills. So we're waiting for those to be delivered to us. I believe Linda's here, so she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they said a 3-week lead time. So we put in the order last week. So in about 2.5 weeks or so, and the job itself will take a couple of days to actually install them. We've still been working on some of the ventilation issues. Met with a couple of people down there. We have a few short-term solutions that I think we're going to implement. The long-term fixes might involve a little bit more redesign of the area. To be perfectly honest, it's probably a faulty design in the first place. And just the fact that it's a basement is also difficult because it gets very damp down there. But that's one of the issues that we can address. I think we're going to put in a dehumidifier and a air purifier down there at the very least, which should help a little bit. Looking into different fan systems and exhaust and ventilation systems as well that could go to the outdoors or possibly go up into the area right above that room. We also have the existing public safety engineering firm. We delivered site plan of the parking lot to them. And so they are reviewing that right now, still with the intention of providing us with low cost options for us to improve safety concerns. One of the things that I know the pool committee is talking about is recommending that people move behind those parking spaces. One of the things, interestingly, that we discovered is that when the pool house was first constructed, it was imagined that there would be a walkway if you're entering the pool house on the right side of the parking lot there, behind there, which we've since put in a rain garden, so it may not be practical there, but I did sort of find it interesting that that was part of the original design that I guess was scrapped for one reason or another. Been in contact with Pepco about our street lights. Nothing major to update you on with that. The next sort of big step I was going to ask them for is a couple of things. One was getting an example of the two different lights in the wattage range that we were looking at, to hang them up so that we can get a good idea of them. And then the second is to get a better sense from them if they would be able to do it kind of all at once, or if it would need to be a staggered project done over a longer distance. So those are the major things that they are looking into for me right now. In terms of the town hall, I had a meeting with the Montgomery Municipal Cable folks last week, and they sent me an email actually today saying that they had ordered equipment for us to be able to do hybrid meetings. So whenever the council decides that that's what we want, we want to move in that direction. Essentially what we're doing is we'll set up a webcam system. So the council itself is one of the Zoom users. So we would continue to use the Zoom platform for folks that are liking the ability to log in, but also getting a nice TV screen so the council can engage with residents who do log in, et cetera. I'm sorry, I just lost my place on my list here. One thing that I was going to raise at the next work session is to try and schedule a time to do a final presentation. Our archiving project has wrapped up and everything's been picked up. They've begun scanning things for us and actually sent us a first sample. And then concurrently, the History and Archives Committee is also working with a firm to scan and make available some of their documents as well that have some historical relevance. And I know the hour's getting late, so I'm fading along with everybody else. So I'm gonna cut it off there. Still happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you for that outstanding report. Council President Circa, do you have any questions?
No questions. Just want to thank Matt for moving things along on so many different fronts, from website design to the engineering support for the town pool.
Thank you. Councilmember Barr, do you have any questions?
Yeah, for the folks who have the contract to advise us on the redesign of the pool parking lot, is there any chance that the solutions could be in place before the start of the pool season on May the 15th?
Yeah, that's what we have been talking with them about. I think I don't want to put the cart before the horse and necessarily get into the weeds on the types of things that they're recommending, because I don't know that they've fully fleshed them out, but yes, that's the intention. Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Heller, do you have any questions?
Matt, maybe you said this before and I was zoned out, but one of these guys gonna give us some plans to look at or make some suggestions for the walkway?
Yeah, so part of it is that their solutions are not I don't in my latest discussions with them, they suggested that they aren't necessarily going to recommend us putting in an entirely new walkway, for instance, and are looking at more easily ideas that could be more easily implemented. Yeah, I just to throw it out there, one idea was to get rid of the three parking spaces on the left there, which wouldn't significantly cut down on the availability of parking, but would eliminate people having to back up. For example, they're looking into one of the ideas that the pool committees looked into before, in terms of putting in diagonal spaces instead of straight back, which may make it easier to park, for example. But I don't anticipate it being involving additional infrastructure. I think at the most it would be repainting lines, things like that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kumar.
Matt, I echo Steve's observation that you are pushing a lot of things on many fronts. So thank you for all your hard work. On the pool reopening, I'm very focused on that it's glitch free because of what it portrays to the residents in terms of our act being together more than anything else. And so please do surface any issues that might be coming up that might challenge that, and do that early and do that widely and do that promptly.
Yeah.
And then in terms of a dry run for the pool, is there a date set for a dry run of all the pool systems? Is that typically part of the process? Is it ideally 5 to 6 days ahead of the actual pool?
Let me pull up, because actually on Friday, American Pool sent me kind of a plan for the next month and change up until our pool actually opens. So they're going to begin. Basically, we have a few small items that need some work that I signed off on today.
Matt, sorry to interrupt you. Why don't we take that offline?
Okay.
We could to just get that date so that Shannon can get her question in before we all collapse over here.
Okay. Fair enough. Yep.
I have no questions, but thanks, Matt.
So we'll pick it up offline, Matt. Thanks.
Okay. Very good.
Okay, and you're done, Councilmember Roback. Okay, with that, I want to congratulate you on another successful meeting, and good luck to the candidates in their campaigns,
including yourself.
And we will see you all in 2 weeks from tonight at 5:30.
Thank you all. Thank you, Ron.
Everybody.
Good night,
Good
all.
meeting, everyone. Thanks for all for your engagement.